we will have Law on the Street, a new segment. We have Money on the Street on Tuesdays, and now we're going to have Law on the Street on Mondays, and we're going to be talking to attorney Brian Pritchett of the Pritchett firm. He is an attorney. He is a prominent attorney here in Georgia, and he's going to be talking to us about all legal issues every Monday at 8:36. Brian, welcome to Word on the Street.
Thank you, Shelley. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you heard us coming in. You heard us talking about Global Diversity Awareness Month, correct?
Correct.
You've worked as an attorney. What are some of the stories? Have you ever heard a crazy story where someone has sued or, had brought legal action?
It happens in a lot of cases. I do because I represent. Right here?
Move it up a little. There
we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Malika. Thank you. It happens in a lot of cases. I've worked in for 22 years now doing workers' compensation and personal injury cases and some criminal cases. And you'd be surprised at how many different countries I've represented people from, probably dozens of different countries. And, the thing I see the most is when people come over and they get hurt working here in Georgia and the insurance company doesn't want to pay them because they're not documented or not legal. It's like, no, they're legal people. They're here. They're working. Their status may not be legal, but they are actual human beings who got hurt working for your insured. So just a lot of inherent racism in the system that I've seen and fought against for a long time.
Now, you see that specifically as racism, not just an insurance company trying to save money. That's
when it comes down to the people fighting on the street, the attorneys, a lot of it does seem to be a little bit racist,
right?
If I should be so bold.
Yeah, please be bold.
But absolutely, this word on the street.
Yeah,
be
yeah,
bold.
you can be bold. So the idea that you need some type of global diversity, that people in companies need to be globally, diverse, aware of different cultures and how not to be offensive, is that something you think is needed in the workplace?
I think it's crucial to the workplace because it's really easy to offend somebody unintentionally, and you want to teach people how not to do that. Because if you're just doing it accidentally and you're not being malicious, then you need to know those triggers. You need to know what could cause that. But if you know someone and you're trying to anger them in a way that would be just insanely over the top, then we need to have that education to weed those people out so they're not in positions of power where they can continue the abuse.
So is that is there a legal difference between the guy who's trying to offend in the workplace and the person who doesn't know they're being offensive? They're just asking a question. Is there a legal difference between the two?
It depends on the intent or the impact of that discrimination. But to sue for a federal discrimination type action, you can't discriminate based on race, religion, country of origin, sexual identity. A lot of those types of things are set by federal law. But when it comes to creating a hostile work environment, it really just depends on the recipient of that sort of abuse. Like, what is the intention, the ramifications of that abuse? What's the impact of those things that are said? So you got to look at the whole picture.
And now that you're talking, if I'm a company, I've got a small business, but if I were doesn't matter small or big, I've got to protect myself. So everybody's getting, because even if there might be little Mary who is getting asked questions, she's answering the questions about diversity. Maybe she's a Muslim and everybody thinks, oh, Mary's cool answering these questions. Ask her about, do their husbands have multiple wives? And she's answering it. On the inside, Mary may be like so nervous and exploded, and all of a sudden now she's in HR. They were like, well, she was answering. So for me as a company, I put these measures in place and awarenesses and trainings and diversity to kind of protect myself.
Sure. And that's important to do because you don't want to have somebody seem to be okay with answering these questions, because that becomes, is that part of their job? Are they required to answer these questions? And that's why I have a few really good employment attorneys that I consult with if I need them, because I'll call them if I have these questions. But it is important to have that education, to teach your employees or your coworkers how to actually just be respectful to people in the workplace.
We're in the studio with attorney Brian Pritchett of the Pritchett firm. Our first hosting our first Law on the Street every Monday at 8:36. Let's move on. We just had Hurricane Ian sweep through. Bunch of over 100 dead so far. They're saying Sanibel Island is might be homeless. What are the rights, the legal rights of people after they've gone through these hurricane situations? What are their legal rights, insured or uninsured?
It's basically two types of it's the haves or have-nots. Do you have insurance or do you have not the right insurance? Like Sanibel Island, Fort Myers Beach, completely trashed. They're saying it could be up to $57 billion in damage down there, right there on the Gulf Coast, just in Florida. 85 is what I heard for the death count. Now it's over 100, and they say it's going to climb up really high. But a lot of people who live on the coast can't afford insurance, proper insurance for a hurricane. You think if I get a homeowner's policy, I'm going to be covered. If a tornado hits me or a hurricane hits me or if I get a lot of rain and it floods, I'm going to be covered by a homeowner's policy. And the insurance company is not going to tell you you won't be covered, because to get hurricane insurance, to have enough insurance on a house, you got to have home, flood, and windstorm damage. Those are three different kinds of policies you've got to have on that house to protect you from a hurricane. So
go ahead. So homeowners association,
yeah.
Homeowners insurance.
That's a whole nother show.
Homeowners insurance doesn't cover you, even if you're in a home in a hurricane area or a tornado area. That doesn't cover you alone.
No, it usually doesn't, unless you have a rider on that policy that does cover for wind damage or flood damage. Usually in places that have hurricanes that come with high frequency, you're not going to get that policy. You're not going to qualify for that policy because you can't afford that policy. And if you think about a lot of these towns, Fort Myers Beach hadn't been hit by a major hurricane in I don't know how long. And a lot of those homeowners didn't have all the insurance because they were either lifetime residents and they owned their house outright and didn't have the insurance, or they just didn't think they needed it, or they couldn't afford it. I mean, insurance companies will make you charge you like insane rates to have that insurance
in a hurricane area. In an area where hurricanes happen all the time.
Correct, absolutely. And if you live far enough inland, you're not going to have that insurance because you don't think a hurricane is going to get you. But if a Cat 4 or Cat 5 hits and it goes across the state, by the time it gets to Orlando, you're still getting hurricane force winds.
Right.
I mean, that hurricane went right across Florida and became a hurricane again.
So what are those people who didn't have insurance? Do they have any legal rights?
Not against their insurance, but through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, can come in and if they're a declared disaster, which President Biden did, you get certain rights through FEMA that you wouldn't get absent that declaration of disaster. And what you do is you can get up to, I believe it's $37,900 per household for temporary housing assistance. And you can get that much money for rebuilding, and you can get some more money on top of that to replace possessions or things that you've lost. Now, a lot of people also can get your car insurance. If you have car insurance, you can actually get your car fixed through that insurance if you have comprehensive coverage.
Just total, like when you buy a new car, they force you to have comprehensive.
Right.
So that covers any kind of damage.
Right. If you have liability or collision, you're out of luck.
Gotcha.
But if you have comprehensive, your car could be under that.
Real quick, I saw Governor DeSantis telling people when it comes to flood damage or wind damage to file flood. Why is he making that the choice for them in regard to that? Because a lot of people already had filed for wind damage prior to him holding that press conference. And what are their legal options?
Well, you could file for both, honestly. I'm not sure exactly what he would be doing, why he would be doing that. I haven't seen that press conference. But you can get flood damage after wind damage because the wind takes off the shingles, the rain comes in the roof, and then you have your house flooded from rain coming from above, not from the storm surge. So I think he was trying to say that flood damage is more prominent. It's easier to prove using the FEMA response, the rights of FEMA to come in and help you out. Maybe he has, maybe he gets a kickback. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
That's why Greg asked the question. He wanted an attack. So you came right in with Greg. Good for both of you. Good for both.
I think he's done a really good job handling the crisis in terms of when he's been answering those questions.
Yeah.
Greg's an anarchist liberal, so don't worry about him. But I want to move on. I want to move on.
Wait, I don't worry about him or worry about him?
Worry about him.
Yeah,
Worry.
worry
Don't
about
worry.
him.
Yeah, don't worry. But let me go move on. I want to move on to Abrams Fair Fight. That case just got, she lost it. Fair Fight lost it. She lost it. She's the head of Fair Fight for all intents and purposes. What on that case did you see that was interesting to you on why the judge found against Fair Fight?
It's a 288-page federal court decision. So if I tell you I've read the entire thing, I am lying. But the judge, who is an Obama appointee, so we can get that out of the way at the beginning. Don't worry about that. It was not a Trump appointee or a Bush or Reagan appointee. Judge Steve Jones, USDC, said, while Georgia's law may not be, and their election rules may not be super duper or perfect, they're not unconstitutional. And he has a higher standard, that he applied a higher standard to those laws. Part of the lawsuit.
What does that mean, a higher standard?
Well, he had to look at what was the reason for the law. And I think it centers on the exact match law that was codified in 2017. And it was one that when Governor Kemp was Secretary of State, that he put into place, got passed, and then withdrew it because it seemed to be a little bit too harsh in its application. I believe at the time of the election there were 57,000 unregistered or unverified African-American voters who could not vote in the election because they did not have an exact match from either their driver's license or their Social Security card. And so the state assembly codified that in 2017, made it a new law again. And based on that, that's why those voters were not allowed to place their votes. And this federal judge said that nothing that happened with those laws violated the Constitution in his opinion. Now, he said the law is not well written. It's not a great fair law, but it's not unconstitutional, and you've got to prove that it was done to the extent where it wants to disenfranchise people.
Right.
So when he says it's obviously he looked at it, are those his words that it's not necessarily well written? I mean, basically that's what he's saying. He acknowledged that part, that it's not well written. It may not be. It's not the most cohesive, but it's not unconstitutional.
Yeah, he said the system in Georgia is not perfect, but it's also not unconstitutional.
And that's all he's looking at to see if it's constitutional or unconstitutional. That's all. That's his job.
That's all a judge is to do.
Nor does it violate the Voting Rights Act, which again has been gutted a couple of times by the Congress.
Right.
So we know that's a problem as well. But this judge had to apply those standards and said it doesn't violate that.
And so here's my I'll ask that after you leave because because it's a true thing.
Who said I was leaving?
Because it's a real thing. My opinion here, and this is the opinion of Shelley Winter on Word on the Street, but a whole lot was said. People were called names. People were called racist. The governors called names. The governors called racist. People were Jim Crow 2.0. All of these things were said. The All-Star game left. I think that at some point, some of those people need to apologize based on this ruling.
I don't know if that's enough to force an apology because the law as it's written did disenfranchise a lot of people. I mean, you can't look at that and say that those people were fairly treated. But does it rise to the level of violating the Voting Rights Act as it stands now or the Constitution? No.
So we're talking about, so I get your point, to hear you say it like that, and it's really good. It's law on the street. Attorney Brian Pritchard here with us. So to say it like that says it with unbiased balance that, yes, those people were disenfranchised. Right. However, this was not done. It was not unconstitutional. And I think unless you get both sides to come together, because no, they weren't disenfranchised. Yes, they were. No, they weren't. Yes, they were. No, they weren't. And whoever is on that side is going to say no, that side, but you're giving us, that's why you're here. Right. Because you're giving us the law perspective of it.
Absolutely.
Trying to.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
So
makes
you're
sense.
A Braves fan?
I am from birth, Braves fan.
Ooh.
So we give you this last minute. You have a full minute and a half if you can take it. If you want to take it to talk smack to myself and Milani Kai, who are lifelong Met fans.
All right, I will use small words. And I will be gentle because I don't want you guys, my first visit, I don't want you guys to cry. I mean, you're here till 10, right?
Right.
I get to leave, and y'all, and you guys also, your game got rained out. But they didn't tell me if it was actually from weather or from the tears the Mets were shedding. I'm sorry. And again, I was so happy. I might have broken a couple of brooms watching that sweep.
This is good smack talk.
Wow.
And welcome to Word on the Street, my friend.
Yes.
And UGA won. He went to UGA. I mean, they are number dos right now.
Right, well,
but we're the home of the dogs. We love the Go Dogs.
Yeah,
I'm lying.
that game was frustrating, but we won 26-22.
Oh, you did.
And we don't deserve to be number one right now. That's
You
fine.
don't.
We got to earn it back.
Yes.
And we will. I'm not worried about that because we play Auburn on Saturday, and I may hate the Mets, but I absolutely loathe Auburn. So
It's attorney Brian Pritchett, the Pritchett firm. Where can they reach you? How can they find you?
PritchettFirmPC.com. You can go to the website and you can send me an email there. You can text me. My cell phone's on there. You can call me. I'm always there to talk to my clients and help you guys out.
Workers' compensation and personal injury.
Absolutely.
Right. And apparently election law.
Absolutely. And you did very well with election law, my brother. God bless you. Thank you. First one out the chute, Law on the Street, attorney.